Today, we are really digging into the end of an era. Nancy Pelosi stepping down in 2027. That's nearly 40 years in Congress.
It really is a huge moment. And,
Yeah.
our sources, we've got presidential tributes, analysis from scholars like Green and Ornstein. They all point to this incredibly consequential, but yet often controversial career.
Right. And our mission here, it isn't just recapping news headlines. We want to move past that noise, really distill what historians and political scientists are actually saying about her legacy.
Exactly. Focusing on, how she actually wielded power, her legislative skill, and of course that huge symbolic achievement,
Right.
shattering the marble ceiling.
Let's start right there. The symbolism is just immense. Her journey, becoming House Democratic Minority Leader in 2002, that was a first for a woman in either party.
A huge first.
And then, of course, 2007, becoming the first female Speaker of the House.
Yeah, that image, taking the gavel. I mean, think about it, 87 years after women got the vote. Pelosi herself, she really leaned into that history.
House.
Well, she made this point that women hadn't just been waiting for 200 years to break that ceiling. They'd been working. It's a powerful distinction.
Waiting versus working. I like that.
It reframes it, doesn't it?
Mm.
And she explicitly dedicated that moment to our daughters and our granddaughters. It was about normalizing female power at the very top, a visual shift for generations.
Absolutely. But it's fascinating, isn't it, that the experts, the scholars, they don't just focus on the symbolism. They rank her based on sheer effectiveness. Norman Ornstein, for instance.
Yeah, Ornstein's take is pretty striking. He suggests she'll rank quite high, maybe even second only to Sam Rayburn among modern speakers, speakers from the last century or so.
Wow. Second only to Rayburn, Sam Rayburn. He was Speaker for, 17 years total? A giant figure.
Exactly, spanning the New Deal, civil rights groundwork. So for Ornstein to put Pelosi, especially considering her first speakership, was just 4 years, 2007 to 2011.
Right, just 4 years initially. So how do they justify that high ranking based on such a relatively short initial run? What's the measure?
It really comes down to scope and impact. It's not about how long she held the gavel initially, but what she did with it.
Okay.
She's one of only 52 people to ever hold that job, the one laid out in the Constitution.
Yeah.
And her effectiveness, particularly in that first term, pushing through massive, difficult legislation during major crises, that's what makes her stand out.
Okay, so let's unpack that. The master legislator status.
Yeah.
She often talked about going from the kitchen to the Congress, right? After raising 5 kids.
Yeah, that was her line.
But what does legislative mastery actually look like in the modern House? How does she operate?
Well, the sources keep coming back to two things. Really sharp strategic thinking and incredible discipline.
Strategic thinking, meaning?
Meaning she was apparently exceptional at counting votes, understanding her caucus, building coalitions. She really, really disliked bringing a bill to the floor if she wasn't absolutely certain it would pass. Almost a sixth sense for it.
And how do you get that certainty? Is it just, deals and favors?
Sometimes, maybe. But mostly, it was about that second piece, discipline. She managed this incredibly diverse Democratic caucus. You had everyone from far-left progressives to pretty conservative blue dogs.
Right, a real balancing act.
And she somehow kept them largely in line on key votes. That's why you see these comparisons to older figures known for centralizing power, like Joseph Cannon, the Iron Duke.
Cannon, he's kind of the textbook example of a speaker ruling with an iron fist, isn't he?
Power came from controlling committees, the Rules Committee especially, basically deciding what legislation lived or died.
So how did Pelosi modernize that kind of control?
She used the tools of the modern speakership, control over the legislative calendar, obviously,
Yeah.
but also influencing fundraising, making strategic committee assignments.
Mm-hmm.
These things build loyalty, or at least compliance.
Oh, okay.
But here's an interesting point from the sources. While she definitely used pressure, she often got these big wins without relying heavily on old-school pork barrel spending, earmarks to buy votes.
Really? So what was her currency then?
Discipline, party unity, shared goals, and, well, probably the implied threat of not getting those committee assignments or fundraising help if you stepped out of line. It was more about institutional power than direct spending.
That's a really key insight. And the ultimate test of that power, that approach, has to be the Affordable Care Act, right? Often called her greatest achievement.
Oh, absolutely. The ACA saga is its legendary congressional history now. You have to remember early 2010.
Scott Brown wins the special election in Massachusetts. Democrats lose the supermajority in the Senate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And suddenly, healthcare reform looks completely dead. I mean, reports were that even Obama's own chief of staff, Rahm Emanuel, thought they needed to pull back, maybe aim for something smaller.
But Pelosi didn't want smaller. She famously rejected the insy-weensy bill idea.
Precisely. She insisted they go for the whole thing, the comprehensive overhaul. It was pure tenacity. Experts like John Pitney and Matthew Green, they give her enormous credit. Green specifically points out how she was personally lobbying members right up to the last minute.
Just sheer will.
The consensus really is, without her driving it, that bill probably would have died.
Yeah.
It's hard to overstate her role.
And it created these symbolic moments, too. Like, we found out she gave Mark Morial from the National Urban League one of the pens Obama used to sign the ACA.
Yeah, that detail really shows her sense of ownership over that victory, shepherding it through like that.
But the ACA wasn't the only major thing during that first speakership, was it?
Not at all. You have the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, the big stimulus package after the 2008 crash.
Right, responding to the financial crisis. The Bush administration had asked for $700 billion initially.
And she navigated the response through Congress. Then there was Dodd-Frank, the financial regulation overhaul. A huge amount of heavy lifting in just 4 years.
And that effectiveness continued later, didn't it, when she became Speaker again in 2019 under Biden?
Yeah, absolutely. She was central to passing big parts of the Infrastructure Act, the Inflation Reduction Act. Her legislative skills didn't really diminish over time.
So the effectiveness seems undeniable, historically speaking. But like you said earlier, it came at a cost, this intense polarization.
A huge cost. She herself said, I didn't come here to be in a popularity contest. Which was probably good because she certainly wasn't winning one with Republicans.
Describe that opposition. How intense was it?
The sources are really consistent on this. She became the ultimate political foil for the right. Constantly caricatured, hammered on conservative talk radio and websites, blamed for deficits. She was the bête noire, the main villain used to rally the Republican base.
And this is where that comparison to Newt Gingrich comes in, right? Not just Joseph Cannon for controlling the House, but Gingrich for being politically radioactive.
Exactly. It's about externalizing that power. Both Gingrich and Pelosi became incredibly potent symbols outside of Congress, symbols that energized their own party, but intensely antagonized the opposition. Radioactive means she just generated so much political heat. Her name alone could mobilize voters against Democrats.
And that mobilization had real consequences for Democrats in tough districts.
Oh, definitely. The clearest example is the 2010 midterms. The shellacking, as Obama called it.
Right.
A lot of that was backlash against the ACA and the stimulus.
Yeah.
Pelosi's discipline meant forcing vulnerable Democrats, those blue dogs in conservative areas, to take really tough votes that arguably cost them their seats. So her legislative success directly contributed to that massive electoral defeat. It's a paradox.
Yet within her own party, especially with Democratic presidents, the view was very different. Obama's praise was pretty effusive.
Yeah, he talked about her tenacity, toughness, vision, her ability to see around corners. He clearly valued her willingness to absorb the political hits to get big things done.
Which contrasts sharply with the Trump era. That relationship was, well, let's just say not cooperative.
Brutally fractious is probably the term. She led 2 impeachments against him, something completely unprecedented for a modern speaker.
And then after January 6th,
she moved quickly to establish the Select Committee to investigate the attack. That led to that massive 1,000-page report detailing the whole effort to overturn the election. She wasn't afraid to confront power directly, even presidential power.
And all this political battling, this intense polarization, it eventually had a terrible personal consequence, didn't it?
Tragically, yes. The constant vilification, the threats, it culminated in that horrific 2022 attack on her husband, Paul, in their home. An intruder specifically looking for her.
Just awful.
It really underscores the dangerous side of that intense political climate she operated in. Yet, sources do note, through all of it, she maintained a certain grace, rarely resorting to the kind of personal attacks that were constantly leveled at her. That iron fist and a velvet glove description really seems apt.
So as her time in Congress winds down, we're left with this incredibly complex legacy. Symbolic trailblazer, legislative powerhouse. Joe Biden called her the most consequential speaker in our history.
It's hard to argue with consequential. Breaking the marble ceiling, landmark laws during crises, holding her caucus together through incredibly turbulent times. That's the core legacy.
But her departure leaves a gap, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure. There's the immediate political scramble in her San Francisco district, obviously. But more broadly for the Democrats nationally, who fills that role? that institutional knowledge, that fundraising prowess, that sheer force of will. It's a big question mark.
The master legislator, the icon, the lightning rod, a career that really shaped modern American politics through success and division.
It really did. And, her method raises a fundamental question going forward. She got most of her biggest wins with virtually no Republican support. Pure party discipline.
A stark contrast to someone like Henry Clay, the great compromiser, known for finding bipartisan paths.
Right. Clay used compromise to arguably delay the Civil War. Pelosi used party power to enact major change in a polarized era.
So the provocative thought for you, the listener, is maybe this.
Given that Pelosi's model of legislative success seemed to require such intense partisanship, such a high political cost, the question for the future is stark. In today's deeply divided Washington, is major change even possible anymore without using that Pelosi-style iron fist? Or has the era of grand bipartisan compromise truly become a relic of the past?
A sobering Qualden. Is intense division now the unavoidable price of legislative progress? Something to definitely think about. Thank you for walking us through this. It's been fascinating.
My pleasure. Always good to talk history.
And thank you for joining us for the deep dive. We'll see you next time.